when people get into archery, there's a couple rabbit holes that everybody goes down. And it doesn't matter if you got into archery 50 years ago or yesterday. Eventually, you've either gone through it or you're going to go through a few different stages. And one of the big ones is arrow weight. And for penetration, kinetic energy, we're not going to get into all of that stuff. We're not going to get into FOC. But if you're going through that rabbit hole right now on trying to get your arrow weight up for kinetic energy, there's a few things that I found that might be helpful. And I'm talking about kind of homemade components or putting components together. There's a lot of good ones out there. Like Iron Will makes really good ones. Valkyrie, there's a Valkyrie system that's really good. Even like Gold Tip and Easton, they all have their component systems and they're all good, but they can get really expensive. And so here are some cheap alternatives to either playing around with it to try to find your arrow weight, and then you can go buy the good stuff. So let's say that somebody told you that you have to have a super heavy arrow for that once in a lifetime squirrel hunt that you're going on, but you don't want to spend a bunch of money. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to go spin your shafts. I'm not going to go through the full process of building arrows. And you're going to cut down the end that's the wobbly one, the crooked end. And it doesn't matter. Everybody always wants to cut this end off. This is just a label. You can even take them off. Most of the time I do take them off. So you can cut down this end, cut down that end, get as straight of an arrow as possible. Then, so you got your grains per inch. These are 8.9, so pretty close to 9 grains per inch. So that's going to be your first step. Just try to find the heaviest good arrow within your budget. So like the Axis are a little bit heavier, grains per inch, and so forth. So the next thing you're going to want is some kind of insert. So if you just use the aluminum insert that comes with them, they're about 12 and a half grains. And it's probably not going to do it if you're trying to get that point weight up. So you can move to a brass insert. This is the Gold Tip version. These are all both 100 grain. Here's where some of the cost comes in. So these are about 20 bucks a dozen. These ones are some kind of off brand, and I think they're like $12 a dozen, so about $1 a piece. So you can do that. So here's a tip that I got from a guy a while back. You get a piece of all thread or a bolt. It's 832, all of them are standard sizes, and you can cut the collar off of an insert and put them together. So now you have a longer aluminum insert for really cheap, practically nothing. And you have about a 60 grain insert. So the good thing about this is you can file this down, you can, take it down. You can really fine tune your weight if you wanted to with this. Gold Tip has some that screw on the back. And they have a huge Allen wrench that goes down the shaft. You could add weights to them. Those get kind of expensive, so you can do that. Here's an old tip from back in the indoor days. You can get a field point and screw it onto the back. I had to take this one down a little bit, but depending on your arrow shaft diameter, you can put that on there. And so now you just bumped up that weight as well. So you can add to the back. One thing to note is that whenever you add to the back, this is all static right here because it's going to be glued in. So whenever you're dealing with spine, which this is not a spine video, you're going to have to be dealing with that as well. So there's those options. So let's say we put these on. Next thing you can do is you can put a collar on there. So here's a collar that I made. People have been doing this for a long time. The collar is to prevent this kind of stuff from happening. So it adds some strength. And this is a 2117. So this was made out of a 2117 game getter. And it slides on just like that. So it's pretty tight fit. And then you can slide this in there. So without anything else, we're at 486 grains. So the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to look at point field points. And I would say match the field point to your broadhead. It's just going to be, whenever you switch to broadheads, it's going to be easier. So let's say you have a 200 grain broadhead. You can put a 200 grain point on there. So now we're at 684 and we don't even have a knock, feathers, anything else like that. So if you've gone down the trad vein rabbit hole, which you will eventually probably, they're about 5 grains a piece. So about 15 grains for all three. If you do feathers, these are all 4-inch, so there's different sizes. These are about 2 or 3. Usually I figure about 3 grains on feathers. Yeah. So you're looking about 9 grains added there. So let's say we're going to put feathers on it, so we're just going to pile those on. Okay, then you have your knock options. So now you have knock options. So you can have just a standard knock, which is about 12 grains. You can have Luminox, which is about 23 grains. There's different variations. That's about 10. Some of them, like this one, take a collar. And so with the collar, they might weigh a little bit more. But since we're going for weight, we're going to put the Luminox on there. So we'll throw that on. We're at 707. So we're over 700 grains. We haven't done too much yet. Now, let's say for some reason you're struggling and you still can't get the weight up. Let's say you're going for like 800 or 900 grains. You can get just some old rope and put it inside the shaft. So you can, usually you do this on the knock end. You just slide this in there. This is just some cheap P cord. And you can adjust the weight. You can also use weed eater line, or, and this is all like DIY stuff. You can buy weight tubes that are made for this. The weed eater line is, it kind of rattles inside. That's why I don't like it. So the rope seems to work better. You just stick it in there, mark it, pull it out, cut it. You want a kind of a snug fit, and it's not going to play with the spine of the arrow at all. So with that, I don't even think my scale will go high enough. Yep, it's overloaded. So I think the scale goes to 775. So you should have no problem getting super heavy arrows just like that. Remember, you can fine tune it with this. The way that I cut those, you just get a pair of wire strippers, and there's a thread cutter or a thread chaser. You can just run it down to whatever length you want. Squeeze it, cut them off. And you can chase the threads back out and it should work just fine. So I hope this helps. You also might need a tap. Here's one that's made for arrows. 832, remember, tap, dies, kind of helpful. And if you're trying to add more weight, make sure you get one that has the threads on the back. Remember, you can always get commercial components, but those are expensive. Also, one other note, don't forget to square up your arrows. I might do another video on that.